This phrase changed everything for me. It made me face what I had been avoiding most, my own shadow. Jung said, "No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Sounds intense, doesn't it? But maybe this is the truth you needed to hear right now? What we're trying to hide is exactly what's keeping us from growing. What if I told you that looking inward, even when it hurts, might be the most direct path to freedom? Today, you'll understand why this dark truth is the key to your deepest transformation. They say, no tree grows toward heaven without first planting its roots in hell. And this phrase, as uncomfortable as it may seem, is the kind of truth that shakes the soul. Jung didn't throw words to the wind. He knew that real growth doesn't happen in comfort, but in friction with what we avoid most. Traumas, fears, guilt, all these things we prefer to sweep under the rug are precisely what shapes us most. Ignoring pain doesn't protect us. It only makes us hostages to something that insists on screaming in the dark. And it's at this point that the journey of self-knowledge begins to show its rawest and most powerful face. When someone truly decides to look within, what they find is rarely pretty. But look, the beauty isn't in the appearance of what you see, but in the courage to keep looking. The shadow isn't just a psychological concept. It's the echo of everything that was rejected for lack of space, time, understanding. A person who faces their abysses with honesty begins to transform from within, like a seed that breaks its shell in the darkness of the earth before reaching the light. It's there, in direct contact with pain, that strength is born, not dependent on applause, but on roots. This process, though profound, can begin with simple gestures, writing a diary about emotions that are normally repressed, doing a guided meditation that takes you back to childhood, finding a Jungian therapist. The important thing is to move beyond the surface, because true growth doesn't come from catchy phrases or motivational books that ignore pain. It comes from confronting what frightens us most. And it's there, in that confrontation, that you begin to understand that what seemed weak might actually be the foundation of true strength. But to access this, you first need to understand what the shadow is, and where, in fact, it hides. Many people think the shadow is just what we want to hide from others: flaws, shame, impulses. But it goes beyond that. It also holds suffocated talents, abandoned dreams, desires that have learned to be silent. Everything that, out of fear of rejection or punishment, we've buried in the most hidden corner of our soul. The problem is that by denying these parts, we fragment ourselves. And those who live in pieces spend their lives trying to appear whole while feeling an emptiness they don't understand the source of. The curious thing is that this shadow reveals itself all the time, even when we pretend it doesn't exist. It's in the anger that explodes for no reason, in the envy we disguise as constructive criticism, in the judgments we make to avoid facing our own flaws. But it also appears in that feeling that something is missing, even when everything seems to be in place. What if instead of continuing to fight against this part, we approached it? If, for example, every time you felt jealousy or irritation, instead of blaming yourself, you investigated, what inside me is asking for attention right now? This is where true self-knowledge begins, because like a tree that grows strong because its roots find water in the dark, our strength is born when we access what's hidden. And look, it's not about fixing who you are, but accepting what already lives in you. A good start might be writing about what you most avoid thinking about, or curiously observing what bothers you in others. All this reveals your shadow, and also reveals the path to becoming whole. And it's precisely when we stop trying to be only light that we begin to understand. There's a silent trap that many call positive thinking. At first glance, it seems harmless, even noble. But trying to smile at everything all the time is like sticking a sun sticker over a deep crack in the wall. Jung knew this. Pain, according to him, is the language of the soul when it needs to be heard. And as uncomfortable as it may seem, pretending everything is fine all the time is like putting on headphones during an emotional fire. Some believe that being strong means always being okay, and that's precisely the biggest mistake. True strength shows when we can admit, I am not okay, when we embrace inner chaos not as weakness, but as part of the journey. Someone who went through this told me they only began to feel whole after stopping their attempts to be light all the time. Instead, they learned to sit with their own darkness and listen to it. This didn't destroy them, it rebuilt them. Pain has its own vocabulary, and those who silence this voice silence important parts of themselves. So the next time something hurts you, don't immediately try to distract yourself or force yourself to be grateful. Instead, sit with that emotion, write about it, ask what it wants to show you, and in the midst of this internal dialogue, you might discover that what hurt you most was the rush to heal. Because often, it's right there, in the middle of emotional hell, that the true process of transformation begins. Some people think hell is a distant place, full of fire and punishment. But Jung pointed to another type of hell, the one that lives inside us. It's the old traumas, the critical voices, the holes we avoid facing. When we spend our lives trying to escape this, we exhaust ourselves without even realizing it. But when we look inward, without rush, without judgment, the pain begins to show that it has something to say. This internal hell, though frightening, is a portal, a place where fear dissolves when it's embraced. Imagine someone who grew up hearing they would never be enough. This transforms into a constant echo that blocks opportunities. Instead of silencing this echo, Jung suggested listening to it. Embracing this fear, naming the wound, giving it space to exist, is already a huge step toward healing. Of course, it's not comfortable. It's like entering a dark room where you know there are monsters, but you decide to turn on the light anyway. And the curious thing, sometimes the monster is just a part of you that got frozen in time, a piece of you begging for attention. Facing this with compassion transforms suffering into wisdom, and little by little, a strength begins to emerge that doesn't come from fighting, but from reconciliation. And this prepares us for something even deeper. Pain is often seen as an unbeatable enemy, but contrary to what many think, it doesn't have the power to destroy us. It has the power to reveal us. When we face pain head-on, something magical happens. It removes masks, reveals our weaknesses, and it's precisely there that we begin to find our greatest strengths. Growing doesn't mean living without pain, but knowing how to navigate the internal storms we all carry. These wins are the real test of our character. It's in this process that a person's deepest potential begins to bloom. What we try to avoid, whether a mistake from the past, an uncontrollable fear, or a frustration, is often the key to our transformation. Have you noticed how, after overcoming something painful, we feel stronger? This happens because it's in pain that we find the most powerful lessons. The first step to authentically flourishing is, without a doubt, to stop running. Look inward, accept the discomfort, and allow it to teach you. Now the question is, are you willing to face this darkness? True strength comes from accepting what you feel, from the courage to take the first step toward the unknown. And when you do this, you begin to realize that darkness isn't something to be feared. It's the tool that will shape you, teach you, and most importantly, empower you. Because in the end, it's in the silence of the darkest night that we find the strongest light of all. Life, in its essence, is a game of contrasts. Each of us carries within ourselves light and shadow, good and evil, joy and sadness. The attempt to be only good, to hide our darkness, is in fact one of the greatest obstacles to our growth. When we deny our shadow, we are, in practice, disconnecting from who we really are. The shadow is not an enemy, it is a fundamental part of our identity. When we manage to integrate this part of ourselves, we stop living in internal war. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean embracing suffering or living in chaos. On the contrary, it means understanding that we are complex and imperfect beings. Abandoning the masks we use to show the world only a perfect version of ourselves is one of the first steps to becoming free. This freedom comes from accepting our flaws, limitations, and weaknesses as valuable parts of our being. The shadow, when viewed with eyes of compassion, is not a prison, but a gateway to our true freedom. And here's the secret. When we accept our duality, life begins to flow more authentically. By stopping the fight against the part of us we consider bad or imperfect, we allow our light to shine in a genuine way. Only by embracing our totality do we become truly free to be who we are. And in this process of acceptance, we find the power to live without fear of being ourselves, with all our contrasts. When we talk about growth, we often think of a straight line, a continuous ascent, where each step takes us to a better and higher place. However, the reality of the inner journey is quite different. Growth, in fact, follows a spiral trajectory, where we pass through the same issues, but with new angles and perceptions. With each cycle, we don't just repeat the challenges, but delve deeper into them, gaining more wisdom and clarity. Instead of going up, we're actually going deeper within ourselves, finding layers that were previously hidden. This spiral movement allows us to revisit old pains and memories, but now with a different perspective. The pain that once seemed like an insurmountable obstacle, when faced again, carries new meanings. It transforms, takes on new significance, and brings with it a wisdom we weren't ready to understand before. Inner growth isn't about never feeling pain again, but about learning to embrace the lessons it has to offer. Each turn of the spiral brings an opportunity for evolution, a new understanding of who we are. So instead of seeing the ups and downs as failures or setbacks, we can see them as part of our evolution process. It's not about linear progress, but a deep and constant dive into our own depths, where each turn brings us closer to our true essence. The spiral is not a straight path, but a journey of self-discovery that never repeats in the same way and each time takes us closer to who we really are. Often, in the search for healing, we desperately try to escape pain. The idea of completely eliminating suffering is something that seduces us, but true healing is not found in this escape. It is, in fact, in facing pain head-on, understanding it, and embracing it as part of who we are. Pain, instead of being seen as an enemy, should be treated as an indicator. It points to areas within us that need attention and care. When we stop fighting against pain and start listening to what it tells us, we begin to truly heal. This integration of pain doesn't just mean recognizing it, but also embracing it with compassion. By saying, "This is also me," we are allowing all parts of ourselves, even the darkest and most wounded ones, to be part of our growth journey. Often the deepest emotional wounds are those that most need our affection and understanding. They are not flaws, but aspects of our humanity that need to be seen and respected. The healing process, then, is a process of acceptance, of looking at pain with the eyes of compassion and inner healing. The pain that once seemed something to be avoided transforms into a source of wisdom. By accepting it, we're not losing sight of it, but integrating it into our being in a healthy way. And in doing so, what was once a mark of suffering becomes a testimony of resilience. Pain teaches us what still needs to be healed within us, and by accepting it, we make room for true healing, the kind that takes us to a more whole and authentic place. Rather than pushing pain away, healing invites us to embrace it so it can transform us. A strong and imposing tree doesn't just grow upward, it also expands downward, creating deep roots. Similarly, our personal growth is intimately connected to self-knowledge and understanding our deepest emotions. Emotional roots are the foundation that sustains our expansion. The more we connect with our emotions, the firmer and more conscious we become, in our choices and actions. Ignoring our emotions is like trying to grow a tree without paying attention to the soil that supports it. It's in the deep understanding of our emotional roots that we find the strength to grow in a full and authentic way. Growing with awareness requires becoming intimate with our emotions. We often avoid confronting difficult feelings like sadness, anger, or fear, but it's precisely these emotions that, when understood, guide us toward true growth. Instead of seeing emotions as obstacles, we should see them as signs of where we need to evolve. By allowing ourselves to feel and understand each emotion, we take the initial step to root ourselves more deeply, creating a solid foundation that allows us to expand into new possibilities and achieve our goals with more clarity. Just as a tree doesn't choose which roots it will have, but rather the nature of the soil where it's planted, we also don't choose all our emotions, but we can learn to deal with them consciously. Self-knowledge, contrary to being a simple or quick task, is a constant process of internal excavation. As we deepen this process, our understanding of ourselves becomes deeper and our growth becomes more solid. It's these emotional roots, well planted and understood, that sustain the expansion of our life, both personally and professionally. Facing pain is a true act of courage. After all, pain has the power to paralyze us, but it can also be the driving force of our transformation. When we face our shadows, we're not simply dealing with suffering, but with the opportunity for rebirth. Darkness, often feared, is, in reality, the soil where our greatest seeds can germinate. Jung teaches us that only by embracing our shadow can we truly understand the light that resides within us. As difficult as it may be to traverse the inner hell, it's on this path that we find true freedom. Darkness, then, is not the end of the journey, but its starting point. It is the starting point for something much greater, a new beginning. Imagine yourself in a dark tunnel, where each step seems uncertain and frightening. But at the end of the tunnel, you know there's a light, and it shines brighter than any other. The inner hell, when traversed with awareness, guides us to this place of light where we understand our true essence and find peace. Pain, when faced with courage, is not just an obstacle, but the catalyst for our true transformation. Jung believed that those who embrace their own shadow can touch the heaven of the soul. This means that true enlightenment doesn't come from fleeing or fearing pain, but from the ability to traverse it with an open mind and heart. Hell, therefore, is not a place of condemnation, but a sacred space of learning and evolution. Each step taken with courage, each shadow confronted, is a stage toward our highest potential. The path is arduous, but it's through this crossing that the true inner light reveals itself. Now that you've delved into all this, the real question is, are you ready to face your shadow? Are you willing to look inside and transform your pain into wisdom? The journey that Jung proposed isn't easy, but it's the only one that leads us to a full, authentic life filled with purpose. There's no use waiting for the sky to open up if you're not willing to dig to the bottom of the earth to find your roots. I want to know from you, which part of your journey is still waiting to be confronted? What fears are you willing to embrace? Comment down below, share your thoughts, and tell us how you're going to integrate this wisdom into your life. And of course, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning more about this inner transformation. Oh, and don't miss the next video. We have much more about self-knowledge and the secrets of the unconscious coming up.